The connection between gambling and Asian communities can make for a hackneyed stereotype, but it can also be viewed as a serious problem that cries out for new remedies. That's the gist of a new report for the Massachusetts Gaming Commission by our guest, a research associate with the Institute for Asian American Studies at UMass Boston, Carolyn Wong, and the CEO of the Boston Chinatown Neighborhood Center, Giles Lee. Thank you both for being with us.
Thanks. Thank you.
I want to start with Carolyn, because this is a study. This is not just about a whole community, which is very diverse, but you're concentrating mainly, I guess, on working class people.
Yes. The reason we did that is because they are the most vulnerable to gambling addiction. They face risks of gambling addiction from the difficulty of their low-wage jobs. Many of the workers in Chinatown are kitchen workers or waiters and waitresses. From the inability to speak English that well, so they sort of isolated from the rest of the community in Boston. And we wanted, with a limited amount of resources to begin this research, we decided to begin there with the population that was most at risk in the community for addiction to gambling.
Giles, one thing this report makes very clear, this is not about a type of people unusually prone to gambling. This is about a situation that evolves in America. Explain the difference.
Right. That's a really good point, because there is kind of this story that people sometimes tell about how Asian people just love gambling, and that's kind of the narrative around Asian communities. But this really is something that takes hold in America, for Asian communities in America. So there's something about what's happening in our society. And like Dr. Wong said, I mean, I think one of the driving factors that we hear from a lot of people is their lives are hard. You know, their jobs are demanding, and sometimes they just want a place for escape. The casino provides that to some extent, but what we need to be really aware of is the kind of risk factors that go into people becoming addicted or gambling beyond their means. And this does happen for working class people of all races, and Asian communities just are particularly, seem to be particularly susceptible to this marketing.
Carolyn, I guess one of the main reasons there's so much gambling by this community is that someone's trying to make it happen. The casinos, explain, what are they doing exactly?
Well, there's a long history of marketing, ethnic marketing, aggressive marketing towards Chinese and other Asian populations in the United States. They, one of the most, I think, important examples is there are cultural festivals. New Year's, Spring Festival in Asian communities all over the country. The casinos will offer money to support these festivals on the condition that they can advertise there. And other things they do is they have buses, free shuttle buses, free transportation from the Encore in Everett, the Encore Casino. Other casinos have, maybe they charge $15 or $20 to go to Connecticut. So there's low cost transportation, and with that you get a coupon to use in the casino for gambling, sometimes free meals, lots of advertising in Chinatown on all kinds of post billboards, radio, TV, newspapers. So there is a very sophisticated and extensive marketing strategy to target Chinese.
Charles, what we're also struck by, there are two ways this seem to play on people's minds about the casino experience. Some of them are really focused on the money, and some of them, they just want to have fun. What about that difference in people?
Well, casino gaming is legal in Massachusetts, and so it's a brand new multi-billion-dollar industry that's being created essentially before our eyes, starting from scratch. And so, I think there are a lot of reasons why people are excited about some of this. The investment in infrastructure, the jobs, the boost to the tourism, economy here in the state, and all of that. There's a lot of good things that you could say about those things. I think what we want to also make sure is that in addition to all the potential upside, that we're also paying attention to the potential downfalls. I mean, it's really our communities, our working class communities, or other at-risk communities. Black and Latino communities are also considered particularly at risk. Veterans, people that are dealing or managing other addictions are also particularly susceptible to gambling addiction. So we want to make sure that these communities that are particularly at risk have some protective factors, put in place so that they're not kind of bearing the brunt of all the kind of negative impact of the sector.
Carolyn, one thing I wouldn't have learned from gambling commercials is that if you run out of money, you can go to a loan shark. And as one of the people you interviewed told, you can also lose your house. I mean, this is pretty serious harm, isn't it?
Yes, there's an informal economy, informal infrastructure around gambling, and unfortunately, if somebody is seen to be losing money, a lot of money, on the casino floor, they're sometimes approached by unscrupulous operators who will then offer them a loan, and they can lose a lot of, the conditions on that loan are onerous, so they will not be able to repay it. People then go into debt and have to borrow money from friends or family, or go in credit card debt, go into bankruptcy and lose their homes. It's not an uncommon story.
And by the way, this is a population that is pretty substantial and growing. Some figures in your report about that?
Yeah, in the census, 2010, the Asian Americans were the fastest growing racial ethnic group. Latinos were close to that. Important thing to know about the Asian American population and the Chinese American population in Massachusetts and all over the United States is that it's bifurcated in terms of income. There's some very poor and some very wealthy. And so there is a myth that Asians are wealthy in the media. These movies about crazy rich Asians. But Chinatown is one of the poorest neighborhoods in Boston.
But they account for a big piece of the casino gambling action,
That's
I think,
right.
and it's growing, right?
That's right. If you just walk on a casino floor, you'll see many Asian faces. Sometimes, it might be 20% in a casino, all the way up to over 50%. It's very common to see this in Las Vegas or Connecticut or Atlantic City, and now in Massachusetts.
I'm sure that every casino would love to get kind of these high rollers that we're talking about, the kind of crazy rich Asian, prototype, the guys from Singapore or from Asia who come on private jets and have a lot to play with. And I understand that, but when you go for these kind of big whales, you get a lot of small fish too, and that's the community that we're really concerned about, people that can't afford to gamble.
Just one of the other things that was mentioned in this report, that people who seem to be most vulnerable to this, they don't have anything else to do. They don't have those third spaces in the communities. Is there a way to make that happen for them?
We, as we were talking about earlier, Chris, we opened the BCNC opened the POW Arts Center a couple of years ago, and we were trying to provide a third space. And many of our friends and partners in Chinatown also provide activities. But when it really comes down to it, all of our community organizations, we have sports, we have game nights, we have family events, we have art exhibits, community meetings. There are things, but in a way, it just can't compete with the appeal of going to a casino. You get on a bus, you get picked up in your neighborhood, you get dropped off at the door of the casino, you get to go in, it's glitzy, you get treated really well. There's people who work there who speak your language, there's food, there's games, there's all kinds of enjoyable things, and then you just get back on a shuttle and go home. So even I can understand the appeal of wanting to just go somewhere and be treated special and feeling like you're getting out of your kind of the drudgery of your everyday life. But when that happens, when the casino is especially targeting, their marketing toward this community, there should also be some guide rails in place to make sure that the casino is being responsible in the way that they're kind of targeting our community and other high-risk communities.
What about that? What things should be done for people to protect them that aren't being done right now?
Well, along the lines of marketing, we recommend that a ethics review board be established, not just for Asians, but for all these vulnerable populations, to review the marketing and advertising, make sure that it follows ethical standards, that it's not deceptive, that it's not aggressive and predatory towards vulnerable populations. As far as health services and education, we really prioritize that in our recommendations. You may be surprised, but there are no services that are tailored to Chinese language and cultural backgrounds available in the city and the state. There are some gambling treatment services, counseling, but none of them offer services that understand the Chinese background and in Chinese language.
Giles, what about the traditions that people do have? I mean, there is a gaming tradition among Asian communities, among any community, playing mahjong, whatever. Do people need more access to that, some ways to make it happen more often?
It's a good question. I mean, I think that kind of gaming in the community, that's existed long before there were casinos in Massachusetts. So I don't know that there's a lack of access to it. I think what we're seeing, or what I'm particularly concerned about, is the targeted kind of marketing from the casinos to our community, knowing that our community seems to be particularly susceptible to that marketing. So, at the end of the day, what I care about is making sure that our communities have some kind of protections in place, just to give them the same chance to ward off getting addicted to gambling or exhibiting compulsive behaviors when it comes to gambling. And I think with the creation of a new, multi-billion-dollar sector, it's a good time. It's a new sector. Casino gaming is new. Let's make sure that we build those guide rails in now. Those protections should be built in now and not later.
Yeah. Carolyn, one of the other things that you did in putting this research together, you rode the bus to one of these casinos. What was that like?
There were one of the shuttle buses I took from the Malden Center to Encore, which is a short distance. It was about 90% of the riders were Chinese. They had come, it seemed, many from Boston and some from Chinatown. There's a common practice of riding the bus to the casinos, Twin River, Plain Ridge Park, and to the Connecticut casinos. So it seemed like this was just a normal, everyday bus ride for many of the people. They were talking to their friends or just waiting to get off the bus. But I did notice that the bus from Malden Center was over 90% Chinese or Asian.
Yeah, a field trip by any other name. Thank you very much for being with us, Carolyn Wong and Giles Lee.
Thank you.